This is a Caprino studio production, and I'm your host, Arun Sridhar. On behalf of all of us in the production team, I want to welcome you to another episode of our immersive production. So please wear your headphones or use an appropriate sound device to listen to the podcast. It is only right that you get to hear the episode in the way we intended it to be. Let's start then, shall we? The story starts in December 1912, 7 years before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and 2 years before the outbreak of the First World War. In fact, it was 2 days before Christmas. While it was a far cry from the Christmas festivities that engulfed the old British Empire back in England, the atmosphere in Chandni Chowk, the famed marketplace in Old Delhi, was festive too. The Union Jack fluttered in the wind. A large crowd had gathered to witness the elaborate procession to celebrate the transition of British India's capital from Calcutta to Delhi. Lord Hardinge, the then Viceroy of India, made a grand entrance, as it was customary back then, on the back of a bedecked elephant with mahouts and parasol bearers in attendance. The stage was set for a spectacle, but someone in the crowd had other plans. While the festivities were in full swing, a deafening explosion suddenly ripped through the crowded Chandni Chowk. Everything came to a sudden and shocking halt. That blast on that day from Chandni Chowk set off a chain of events that still ripples between two countries 6,000 kilometers apart. What if I told you that today's story involves a revolutionary fugitive, a Japanese bakery, the hatred against the British Raj, and a certain fusion food? In fact, it spawned the rise of an Indo-Japanese curry that even today marketed and valued in excess of 2.6 billion yen. And that's 19 million US dollars. The distances people and cultures travel are nothing short of miraculous. And I have to admit, I was amazed too on hearing the story. Want to know more? Let's rewind time and dive right in. From Caprino Studio, this is A Road Less Traveled, a podcast that seeks to dig deep into our collective archives to take you on a journey to show you how stories about India, Indians, and foreigners that are relatively unknown and underappreciated have changed and impacted our lives, society, and culture. Come along with us as we seek to hold your hands and travel through this amazing journey, paired with our own brand of unique storytelling, thoughtful music, and sound design to inspire, engage, and entertain you. If we have crossed paths before, a warm welcome back to you. For those who are new, there is only one way to get to know us and the stories. Get stuck right in and join us as we sail through this adventure together. Let's get started, shall we? I'm your host, Arun Sridhar. Now, let's go back to the day in Chandni Chowk. The grenade intended to assassinate Lord Hardinge narrowly missed him and exploded a few yards behind him, killing an attendant and sending a shrapnel into the back of Lord Hardinge. This created outrage, and the assassination attempt was widely condemned by the global media. So much so that it was even criticized by the Pope in his Christmas greeting 2 days later. British intelligence forces in India, reeling from the attack, made the investigation into the assassination attempt a top priority and left no stone unturned in unraveling the truth. As you learned in school, freedom fighters were of two kinds: the ones who believed in non-violence and followed Mahatma Gandhi, and the others who believed that British Raj must be met with force. The hero of our story, Ras Bihari Bose, belonged to the second camp. In fact, he was precursor to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and relinquished the Indian Freedom League presidency to Netaji many years later. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Now, let's go back to December 1912. Right after the attack, a manhunt was launched by the British forces to catch the man behind the attack, but the mastermind had vanished into thin air. Ras Bihari Bose lived an excellent double life as a decoy British sympathizer by day, while still holding revolutionary intentions. The reason why it became difficult to catch him was because, on the same night as the attack, he had taken a train to Dehradun and the very next day had organized a march condemning the assassination attempt. His decoy was so successful that even Dehraduni Bengalis thought of Ras Bihari Bose as an Indian spy. Such acts helped him stay under the radar for a while. As the proverbial noose got tighter, Bose, being a master of disguise, fled from place to place while engaging in other attacks on the British. This continued for a good 2 years. He was so good with his disguises apparently and decoy that Uma Mukherjee, in a book titled Two Great Revolutionaries, mentions that once he was disguised as a pious Brahmin in Chandarnagar, the police spy tasked with catching Bose actually laid down fully prostrate on the ground and did a pranam, mistaking him for a real holy man. Ultimately, in May 1915, 2.5 years after the assassination attempt on Lord Hardinge, the British Raj had figured out that it was Bose who had masterminded the attack. And now, Bose had no choice but to flee the country for whose independence he was fighting for. Once again, his ingenuity in posing as a relative of a famous poet, Rabindranath Tagore, you might have heard his name, I'm sure, earned him a ticket on a Tokyo-bound ship from Calcutta. For an ardent revolutionary, it was incredibly difficult for Bose to leave behind his motherland, and in his autobiography he wrote, "The idea of leaving my motherland mortally tormented me, and on the dark deck I wept alone bitterly." As the ship sailed away from the port in the faint glow of Calcutta's night lights, Ras Bihari Bose sailed away from his beloved motherland and lived the rest of his life in Japan until 1945. Now, let's leave the sadness of Bose leaving India for a moment. Remember I told you that at the start of the episode about how a revolutionary fugitive influenced a fusion Indo-Japanese curry? I told you about the revolutionary fugitive so far, but I didn't tell you how the food came to be, did I? Now, upon his arrival in Japan, Bose took refuge with a Japanese sympathizer and a Pan-Asianist, Mitsuru Toyoma. During this time, Bose came in touch with the owner of one of the most prestigious bakery, Nakamuraya, owned by the Soma family. The Somas too were important philanthropists and supporters of the Pan-Asian politics. And at this time, the Japanese government was the supporter of the British Raj too, and as a result was pressured into issuing an extradition order against Bose. With the Soma family and Mitsuru Toyoma's help, Bose hid inside the Nakamuraya bakery for months. His family's eldest daughter, Toshiko, acted as his interpreter during this time. But during the First World War, a Japanese ship was fired on by a British naval vessel in error, and this led to an anti-British sentiment and the cancellation of the extradition order. Now a free man, and upon Mitsuru Toyoma's initiation, Bose married Toshiko Soma, the daughter of the Soma family, in 1918. This led to his Japanese citizenship in 1923, and the couple had 2 children before Toshiko succumbed to pneumonia 7 years after the marriage. Like most immigrants, the feeling of not having a direct hand in the freedom struggle of India did not deter Bose from trying his best. In fact, as radio broadcasts were an up-and-coming phenomenon back then, Bose used the power of radio to host anti-British broadcasts from Japan. Through these broadcasts and publication, New Asia that he founded, he acted to mobilize Japanese support for the Indian freedom struggle that ultimately led to the support of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's operations in India. Now, do you see the connection? But let's drop all of this for a second and go back to the enigma in our story, the Indo-Japanese curry. We all know jolly well that curry is an anglicized word for curry, the name given to gravies from South India. The British anglicized it from the locals and the Portuguese. And the way the curry is made in Japan is a story in itself. In the 1870s, officers of the British Royal Navy, who had picked up the curry habit in India, passed it on to their Japanese colleagues. But in contrast to the spicy Indian curry, the curry was now infused with wheat flour, cream, apple, honey, and lemon juice, among other things. The Japanese classified the curry brought in by the British as Western food in Japan, and by the early 1920s, it became very popular. This is where Rasbihari Bose's influence on curry started. Introduced to the sweeter version, his yearning for the homeland made him reimagine the curry. While the curry by now had grown in popularity, his re-engineering of the curry raisu made his father-in-law's bakery Nakamuraya as the go-to place for curry that tickled the Japanese palate. In time, the Nakamuraya bakery established its historical legacy by becoming the first restaurant in Japan to serve authentic Indian curry. According to the book The Bose of Nakamuraya by Professor Nakajima, getting his recipe on the menu was an extension of Bose's anti-colonial struggle by trying to win back India's food culture from the British hands. You might be surprised to know that despite being 8 times more expensive than the average raisu curry, Bose's recipe was a hit. And if you're wondering how famous the curry raisu is in Japan, let me tell you some facts. In 1982, Japanese school children voted curry as their favorite dish for the National School Lunch Program. A curry museum opened in the port city of Yokohama in 2003, one of the ports through which curry arrived in Japan. Among the first food companies to go public on the Japanese Stock Exchange, Nakamuraya grew into a huge enterprise. At the turn of the millennium, the company's decision to launch ready-to-eat packaged curries using the original recipe by Bose was a huge success. Nowadays, almost every train station and shopping mall in Japan sells curry raisu or curry rice. Bose did not live to see his motherland getting liberated, as he died in January 1945 from tuberculosis. The Nakamuraya bakery, though, still stands tall in Tokyo's Shinjuku district and still remaining as one of his enduring legacies. Even today, visitors come across a photograph of a dhoti-clad Bose alongside a kimono-clad Toshiko at the restaurant. The Bose curry seems to have stood the test of time as it remains their most popular item. As for us, we can walk away knowing that sometimes a thing as simple as jhol, as Rasbihari called it, or curry, born out of love and revolution, can bridge distances.
You've just listened to a Caprino studio production. Our stories were written and edited with the valuable help of Banshori Bhattacharya. The impeccable compositions that you listened to were performed by Dr.ShivaShankar, and the sound design was done by myself and our wonderful sound engineer, Mr. Swaminathan ThiruGnanaSambandam. Look up our show notes and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and ensure you get all the updates on our WhatsApp channel. We will see you soon with more stories. Until then, stay well.